You're listening to Bigger Than Belief, real stories about real faith with real people whose belief is unbelievable. I'm your host, Adam Duxter. Thanks for joining us on Bigger Than Belief. Today is Thursday, February 19th, and this week is really unique because for the first time in more than 30 years, we saw the beginning of Lent and Ramadan on the same day, just yesterday. It's something that many faith leaders hope will bring sense of unity across our communities. It's the first time that we've seen those two start on the same day in decades. And this unity, or the concept of unity, is the major theme of today's episode because today I'll introduce you to Imam Mowlid Ali, who's a leader at the Abubakar As-Sadique Islamic Center in South Minneapolis. Together, we talked at length about the impact the last several months have had on their congregation, but also about Ramadan, its significance, and what it means given that it's happening right now. It's a really fascinating conversation that at the end ends with a heartfelt thank you to this community from Mowlid himself. So now, here is Imam Mowlid Ali. Well, we now welcome on a very special guest. We've got Imam Mowlid Ali from Abubakar As-Sadique Islamic Center in South Minneapolis. A very busy man, so we appreciate you taking the time to come join us. And I can't imagine, and this is what I'm really hoping to talk with you about today, just what the last month and a half to 2 months have been like. For people who are not familiar, the mosque you work with is just over a mile away from where Renee Good was shot and killed in South Minneapolis just over a month ago. First of all, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Adam. Glad to be here today, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, I am curious if you had to describe the last 2 months since the beginning of December in a few words. I mean, what are the words that stick out to you when you think about the way the last 60 days have been?
Well, I think one word would be lack of safety, and if you look at my mosque and where Renee Good was killed, it's a couple of blocks away, and when we saw that, we thought about Minneapolis, we thought about our neighborhoods, we thought that this is not normal, and this is not, what our neighborhood looks like. And I actually went there, I gave a speech, I offered my condolences to the family of Renee Good and to the entire neighborhood. And it's been, we've been experiencing so much of frustration, anger, and pretty much lack of safety. And it's not something that's normal to Minneapolis or to Minnesota. So what we felt was this was extraneous. It was coming from somewhere else, and that we needed to be united to overcome that kind of division and that kind of fear. So as a faith leader, what I did was participate in every event where neighbors were coming together, just show some love and compassion, and just promote unity and hope so that we can overcome this together.
I was reading, because this for you started, I'm guessing, well before the day of January 7th, which is when Renee Good was shot and killed. I mean, we're talking easily a month prior. And I was reading kind of a comment you had made somewhere else, which is really for you a moment you could say this started was the president's comments about Somali Americans. For people who are unaware or don't know, what happened there, and what was the reaction for you when you saw that happen?
Well, first of all, it's unfortunate that the president will call Somali Americans a derogatory term, and as a faith leader, I actually sent a letter to the White House. I sent a letter to the president, and I got a response like a few weeks ago that the president received my letter. So what I wrote to the president and to the White House was in defense of my community, and that the president should apologize and should not dehumanize an entire community. So, everybody knows when a president, a leader dehumanizes an entire community, what follows everybody knows that if you read history, that if you find a leader trying to dehumanize an entire community, the consequences are unimaginable. So we thought about it in different ways, but as a faith leader, my response to that was to be respectful and to be kind, and also to open the doors for the president to visit our community and to apologize and to see the reality of who the Somali Americans are in Minnesota.
Did you see the fallout from those comments essentially play out right away? I mean, I obviously he says that publicly, and then in the weeks to come, you start to see other things happening, other, division, as you'll say, just against our local Somali community or our Muslim faith community. I mean, what did you see follow those comments in the weeks and days that happened after?
I mean, I don't really know, like, I can't really tell the cause and the effects, but, when the president called the Somali American community that kind of term, what happened after that is, the federal agents coming to our states, especially to our city, Minneapolis, and turning things upside down. So I think everyone in our community has been caught up in this kind of operation. And prior to that, it was about the Somali Americans, and after that, it turned into all Minnesotans. So I cannot tell what is in the head of the president or the administration, but whatever happened, dehumanizing the Somali Americans or the ICE operation in Minnesota, it's not needed. This is not necessary. I think the leadership can do better than this, and that's what we've been calling for, like, for the past few months. De-escalate. Let us live in peace.
When things like that start to happen and there is a lack of safety or of fear, how does your faith guide you in that moment?
Yeah. So, I mean, in precarious moments, like the past few months, last 2 months in Minnesota, I've been telling my congregation to have faith in God. And it is a time like this that we don't lose hope. And we know that God is in control, and that we keep that faith. I mean, everything outside is chaotic. When you look outside, you look at the bad news, you look at how people are dehumanizing. I mean, you become pessimistic. You look at the comments people are making about us. I mean, you look everywhere, the news everywhere, you become, pessimistic. But if you have faith, you look at the good side, you become optimistic. So we're trying to be optimistic through having faith in God.
Where does that come from for you? Because I feel like for so many people, it could be the exact opposite. It could be, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm going to, respond in that light. Is it a teaching or a writing or something that you're falling back on or coming back to that is encouraging you to have that response?
Yeah, precisely. We have the Islamic faith in the Quranic revelation. We have stories of prophets, stories of the prophets who went through the same, or even worse than we were going through, and they didn't lose hope. They had faith in God, and ultimately they became triumphant. They became successful, because when you always have faith in God, you put your trust in God. I mean, things may look bad, but ultimately, God will take care of you. That's what faith teaches us. And another thing I would say is, also faith teaches us that even the person that you disagree with, you don't dehumanize them. You try to open the door, and you try to maintain some sort of wisdom. And that's exactly what I told my congregation, that, what we see is very bad, but faith teaches us that we respond with wisdom, not fear. And we also, we respond with anything that's happening with having some sort of like hope that, things could change and this would not be the end of the world. There is a passage in the Quran that God says, وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ, which means that, the good and the bad are not equal. So repel the bad with that which is better. So like somebody comes to you and they say something bad about you, or they try to intimidate you. Okay, if you respond in the same way, you're both the same. But if you have faith, if you're a faithful person and you have faith in God, you have to respond in a better way. So perhaps that person's heart, might change. And there we have a story in the Islamic history where Prophet Muhammad went to, peace be upon him, went to one of the cities in the Arabian Peninsula in his time. And he didn't have army, he didn't have no one. He just went by himself with one of his companions. And the people were very rude. They responded back to him in the most, disrespectful manner. But when on his way back, he made supplications for them. He made dua, we call dua in Islam, to God to guide them, to have mercy on them. He didn't, seek revenge. He didn't retaliate. He didn't have none of that because he was hoping that perhaps if they reject me now, maybe in the future something will change in them. And I think that's what faith communities. That's what we have. That even the people who disagree, the people who show this kind of animosity, we have to keep some sort of hope that any human being has the potential to change, because ultimately love and mercy and compassion, they have the power to change the hate and whatever people are experiencing.
You're looking back on those examples and saying, I need to apply this to this current situation.
And that's exactly what I did in my first sermon after the killing of Rene Good. I spoke about, these stories, and that's exactly what I did when, the president dehumanized my community. I spoke in this way, that we have a reference, we have a way to respond back to this. That even if someone is trying to put you down, you don't become what they want you to be. You try to rise up and respond in a good way. That's why I wrote the letter to the president. I wasn't angry. I was trying to tell the president that what you know about the Somali community, the Somali American community, is not true. So just come to Minnesota and look at the Somali Americans. We have children, Somali Americans, who are Americans who look up to you as a president, and for you to say these kind of words are unfortunate. Yeah.
And you said, as an aside, you got a response from that letter, or you got some sort of response that the letter was received? What did you get in response?
Well, it's just like, the president appreciates your letter, but he didn't address the core issue. But I got a response that, we received your letter and thank you for your letter.
Was that a surprise to you that you got some sort of response?
Well, I mean, it was a surprise to a certain extent, but, he didn't address the core issue. So I thought, yeah, my goal, Adam, was to convey the message. The way the president responds or his staff responds, it's up to them, Yeah.
We had on about a month ago a pastor from a heavily Hispanic church, DHH Church in South Minneapolis. And the pastor there was saying that most of their congregation was staying at home on Sunday just because of fear that they could be, even if they're a citizen, just that they didn't want to go through the process of being stopped, or just the potential for what could happen if they're stopped. And that is a Christian church. I am curious, with people of the Muslim faith, it's my understanding there is such a call to be together in person multiple times throughout the course of the day and the course of the week. There's not like a virtual option, is there? I mean, so how have you balanced, because I'm sure there's people in your mosque that are afraid, to leave their homes because of what's going on. How do you balance that safety with, okay, we need to be together. We're called to be together. This is kind of our purpose and our mission is to be together. How do you balance that?
Yeah, well, lack of safety, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's when we lose safety, we lose everything. I mean, things won't be the same. As you mentioned, we have members of our congregation who are American citizens. When they saw what's happening on the streets, the killing of Rene Good, Alex Pretty, and they look at this force and this tension, and they decided to stay home. And they said, we don't want to. They said, we would rather stay home. Not because they don't have documents, they're American citizens, but because they're afraid of going outside. They're afraid of going to the mosque to worship. They're afraid of going to other places. So I think that the lack of safety has impacted our congregation tremendously. And we're hoping that, this, would de-escalate and things will get better before Ramadan comes. But yeah, I mean, one way we were balancing between the fear and the community and the coming together is, telling the members of our community to just come out and just pray and just go back and be safe and don't engage in any kind of discussions that will put you in trouble, or we were giving them some sort of safety protocols, but we were telling them to come to the mosque. But despite those caveats, but it's still, ultimately people they have to make decisions by themselves. So there are some people who decided to stay home.
What is the drop off that you've seen? I mean, is it tangible? Can you say we typically have this many people? The last month or so, we've had this many people showing up. I mean, is it enough to where you can say that there's people not coming?
I don't have an exact number, but the impact is pretty obvious. Yeah. As an imam, I know my congregation, and I know how this has impacted my community. So I would say yes.
Late January, we have a person come to the Twin Cities saying they're going to host a march, right? They're going to burn the Quran on the steps of City Hall. And the march is, and I believe in their own words, was a march against Islamification of the United States. I'm sure this is something that crossed your radar. When you saw that this was happening, what is the reaction to that? Is it anger? Is it fear? Is it, how am I going to protect people? What was the significance of that day for you?
Yeah, so, I mean, the response to that for us as a community was basically, as a leader, I say that, this guy or this person is promoting misunderstanding, promoting hate. And the only way that we can encounter this is by spreading mutual understanding and telling our neighbors who are the Muslims and what Islam actually teaches. So one of the things we did was I wrote a small book called An Invitation to Know Islam to My American Neighbors. It was kind of addresses the issues that this guy or this person says in the social media or whatever, rallies he goes to. So I believe when you have a person that's too loud and says, fabricated stuff about Islam, as Muslims, we don't respond with anger. We don't dehumanize even that guy. We pray for that guy that, God opens his heart so he can see, the guidance himself. And we respond with what is better by educating and having a dialogue. Actually, I was telling one of the people that if anybody knows, let's invite him to our mosque and, one of the offices, and give him some sambusa and tea and, just talk to him. Perhaps he might change.
Have you thought about what you would say to him if say he's in the room here and he is receptive to listening, to what you have to say? What would you say to him?
Yeah, I would say let's talk. We are talking. I would say that we are talking not as a Muslim or Christian, two human beings who have, intellect, language to understand each other. Let's have a dialogue. It's only through dialogue that we can overcome these misunderstandings. I don't think he ever had any chance, any opportunity to sit with any intellectual Muslim scholar who address his concerns. It's easy to say things in YouTube. It's easy to say things from a far distance. But I don't think he had a chance to discuss with someone. So we're not afraid of that. We welcome any kind of dialogue. Mm. Yeah.
One thing you've mentioned a couple of times in our conversation so far is this invitation to people who are Muslim or Somali to say, hey, go out and talk to people, or, hand out sambusas, right? Or give out some tea. And I've seen that actually. I mean, we've been out at, some of these scenes, whether it's the memorial sites for Renee Good or Alex Preddy, and there are people with big trays of food walking around, handing it out. Has that been something that's been really intentional over the course of this last month? And if so, what is the hope of what you're trying to accomplish to say we're out here and we're just handing out these things?
Yeah, well, primarily it's because we so if you look at Minneapolis, we're part of this, family, this neighborhood, whether you're a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, whether you have a faith or lack of faith, we're all human beings, neighbors living together. So when Rene Good was killed, we thought about like, okay, we cannot just remain, silent. We can't just stay at our house. We have to do something. It's very cold. It's extremely cold, and we have people coming out. We have to be there, give, sambusa, we call shah, hot tea with milk, and let's be together and show some love. I think that's the main goal. Just be there and be united and show some sort of like solidarity with your neighbors. I think that's the main thing, to be part of the community, to stand together, that their suffering is our suffering. Our suffering is their suffering. That's the message we wanted to send. Mm. It's not like, spreading sambusa so that people can convert to Islam. Or that's not actually the goal. The goal is to be humane to one another and to show compassion to one another. Yeah.
So there is an intention to be out there, but again, just to say we're here with you.
Yes, precisely. Yeah.
Next week, Wednesday, we're taping this Thursday, February 12th. And so it'll release Thursday, February 19th. So when we're listening to this, it'll be a little bit in the future from right now. Next Wednesday evening marks the start of Ramadan. For people who are unaware or just aren't familiar, how do you explain the significance of what is going to happen next week and beyond?
Yeah, so in the month of Ramadan, there are 2 billion Muslims around the world that will be fasting. They are fasting in the month of Ramadan, and including your American Muslim neighbors. Ramadan, its simplest form, is to abstain away from food or drink or water. None of that. You don't eat anything from morning until sunset. And for us, actually, what Ramadan is, if you allow me to explain this, Ramadan is to redefine, what it means to be human. That's how we see it. Because for 11 months, we eat and drink and we enjoy. We feed the body. But there's one specific month, the month of Ramadan, is the month for the soul. It is a month to nourish the spiritual feelings. The soul has a propensity to have a connection with its creator. That's how we see it in Islam. And it's the month that we say, no more to the body, more to the soul. And there is a lot of recitation of the Quran, remembrance of God, community, generosity, giving charity to the poor, coming together, listening to the stories of the prophets. It's a moment of reflection, recitation, supplications, because we as human beings, we are not only appetites. We are not only here to eat or drink. We are more than that. We are spiritual beings in human experience. And Ramadan comes as a month to say no to food, but yes to the soul, having that opportunity to have a tranquility and stillness and quietude with its creator. So if you go to any mosque, you find Muslims reciting the Quran, staying in the mosque late at night for recitation, for prayers, for fasting the whole day, for also community. So that's what Ramadan is about. Also, another thing I would like to add is that Ramadan is also a month of community. It's a month of going out and reaching out to those who are less fortunate, giving sadaqah, charity to the poor, to the needy. It is also a month of reaching out to our non-Muslim neighbors. Actually, in our mosque, we have on the 27th of Ramadan, of February, we have an open house for our neighbors. It's called Appreciation Event. So we're going to have all the South Minneapolis and anyone. You're also invited if you want to come. And so, I mean, the point of Ramadan is a personal development, having a connection with your creator, and also showing love and compassion to the rest of the people. So that's what actually Ramadan is about.
Have you thought about the timing for this year? Just the fact that this is happening in tandem, or potentially at the very tail end of the last 2 months that we've had. How significant will this year be, even personally for you or just to the community, after what people have been through over the course of the last 60 days?
Well, definitely there'll be a lot of reflections on what happened to us, in our communities, and what happened to our state, our city, Minneapolis. And I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know in the month of Ramadan if things will be better or not. But we're hoping that, things would be, it would be better. But ultimately, as faith communities, when we come together in Ramadan, we respond back to with, having faith in God and reflect on what happened. And also knowing that every hardship, every crisis has a beginning and an end. And we will wait for the crisis to end, and we would supplicate, we would make dua, tremendous supplications that things will get better in Minnesota. And by the way, we will pray not only for the Muslims, but we will pray for the entire state, for stability, for unity, and for this whole thing to end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And taping this the morning of February 12th, we got an announcement this morning. It could Operation Metro Surge could be in effect over. At this point, I mean, how are you feeling? How quickly did that message go out across your phone, texts, calls? Things are. I'm guessing, right? What has this morning been like as people are reacting to that news?
Yeah, well, because I, as a faith person, as an imam, a faith leader, I'm always optimistic, and every good news is good news, and that makes me optimistic. So, with that news, I said, praise be to God, and I always had faith that God will protect us, and we're optimistic. But we don't want to exaggerate in our optimism, because we have to see real change on the ground. But yeah, it is. We're hoping for this, and I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our neighbors, everyone in Minnesota who came out, who said no to this kind of force with no mercy, this kind of division and dehumanization of the Minnesotans. Every person that came out and said no to this kind of rhetoric, we want to thank them, because ultimately we're one in this. And I think Minnesota sent a message to the entire nation that we can be together. Yeah, especially when the top leadership is inadequate, we as communities can come together and be united.
That's one of the last things I want to ask you about is I was reading about the people who came out to physically protect the mosque on Fridays. And the way I was reading it, it sounds like people are essentially just making a barrier around the building. I was reading about a rabbi who came to shovel at one point. What has it been like to watch the amount of community support you've gotten from people you might not know over the course of the last 8-9 weeks?
It's lovely. It's humbling, and it makes us optimistic that these are our neighbors, beautiful people. I mean, Adam, I come every Friday to give a sermon, and I see people standing outside saying that we're here. We're here to protect you. I mean, that for us it was a clear message that, that there is hope, there is love in us as human beings, and we need to nourish and nurture that. And that's exactly the reason we're having the appreciation event on the 27th of February, because for those who are coming to our mosque, the neighbors who are taking their contact informations, and on that night we want to recognize them, we want to pray for them, and we want to appreciate them. And of course everyone else, but those people are also included in our appreciation event.
Because the first time you saw that happen, I can only imagine you're pulling up and you see a bunch of people outside and you're thinking, Did something happen? What's going on here? It's not something you asked for, I'm guessing, for people to come. When someone comes and supports you in that moment like that, I mean, I know you just spoke on that a minute ago, but what is that like for you?
That is because I feel like our neighbors are choosing unity over division, hope over despair, and they're also choosing faith over fear. They're coming to protect a place of worship because they see the importance of faith. They're not afraid to come out and protect places of worship. So I see neighbors' unity and faith and hope together. Yeah.
This event on the 27th, is there a time range?
For the event?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. From we will start right before the iftar, and it will continue until the iftar time. Iftar is the time we break our fast, so it'll be from 5 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything else? If people were to take one thing away from hearing from you today, what would you want people to walk away from this conversation knowing, or just to take from you?
To everyone that's watching us, Ramadan is a great month. Your American Muslims neighbors are fasting. It is a month of generosity. It's a month of connection. It's a month of love. Just reach out to your neighbors and have a conversation with them. And there are mosques that are having invitations in Ramadan. Just go to them and let us talk to one another as human beings. We should not judge each other because of what social media or the people behind the keyboards are saying about us. I think as neighbors, we can do better, and we can come together and we can have a discussion.
Log off, see it for yourself, make a friend.
Make a friend.
That's the message.
That's the message. Yep.
Imam Mowlid Ali from the Abubakar As-Sadique Islamic Center, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And again, Ramadan starts next Wednesday night and will last for a month. And I'm sure for people, when they hear this, this will be encouraging for them. So thank you for taking the time to sit down and join us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for giving us your time today. I personally really enjoyed this conversation with Imam Mowlid Ali, so I'm really hopeful that for you, it was interesting as well. If this is your first time listening to Bigger Than Belief, thank you for checking this podcast out. We are a weekly interfaith podcast through WCCO television in Minneapolis. Our whole goal is to share real faith stories of people living in our community and beyond. Also to understand big issues we see in our world and analyze them through a faith lens. If you enjoyed this episode or found it interesting at all, please take a moment and rate us 5 stars if you haven't already. It just takes a moment and it helps us way more than you'd realize. Also, please send this episode to a friend or take a minute to share some of the posts we've been putting out on WCCO's social media page. You can also find all my personal social accounts just by looking up my name. And folks, it's hard to believe, but next week is our final February episode, and it is one I'm pumped for you to hear. So in the meantime, stay safe, stay warm, and we will see you very soon.